Hi, and welcome to Hattie Knits Along. My name's Allison, but my friends call me Hattie, and I'm a knitter living in the Pacific Northwest. On this channel, I like to talk about all things knitting, what I'm working on, what you're working on, and what we are currently nerding out about. In today's episode, I'm going to go over everything I knit in 2024. I knit about 34 different items, and I learned a lot along the way, so grab your knitting and stick around. So for this video, I'm going to go in order of finished objects on Ravelry. So I do think that Ravelry lists my finished objects by the order of when I started them and not necessarily when I finished them. So just for ease sake, that's what I'm going to go with. But you can find all of my knitting projects on my Ravelry page, which is linked down in the description below. And the first project that I finished in 2024, I finished it on January 7th, and it was the Musselburgh hat. This is a pattern by Ysolda Teague, and I knit mine out of the Wandering Flocks Baby Paca, which is a combo of merino, alpaca, and nylon. I think it's 50% merino, 30% alpaca, and 20% nylon. So it's extremely soft fabric. I really like that. It's a sport weight yarn. And I knit mine on size 2.5, which is 3mm needle. If you haven't knit a Musselburgh hat, you get to basically choose the weight you want to work with and the needle size you want to use. So I picked using a 2.5 needle, and I do think that my fabric is a little tight and I don't have as much stretch as I would like in this hat. I do still wear it quite often, but I think if I were to knit with that yarn and make the same hat, I would probably size up to at least a 3, if not a 4 in my needle size, so I could get a looser gauge on this hat. But I really like this hat. I wear it a lot. I had a bright red hat and I needed something a little more neutral and a little more in my everyday color palette, and so this light purple, oh yeah, the color is Moonstone, I believe. I apparently finished 2 things on January 7th last year. My second finished object were these vanilla socks. So these were knit out of the Yarnalia yarn in the color Evening Sky. And it is kind of this self-striping, but it's not even stripes. It's kind of haphazard stripes. I just did a vanilla sock. I used size 1 needles and cast on 64 stitches, and I just did, plain stockinette and a heel flap and gusset. These socks are really comfy. I knit a super long leg so that they would be super cozy to have in the winter time, and I was just kind of practicing my sock knitting because later on you'll see that I did get the Farmer's Daughter Sock Squad all year last year, and I needed to have some sock knitting skills under my belt. So, yeah, that's these socks. I think this yarn is a little bit of a heavy fingering weight, so they are kind of big, but they are super cozy, and I do wear them a lot. The next project I'm going to talk about, I actually finished the day before on January 6th, but I must have started it later. It is the Super Easy Crib Blanket by Purl Soho. I got this as a kit for Christmas last year, and it is really nice. It's made out of the super soft merino, which is Purl Soho's bulky weight yarn. It's a single ply yarn, so it's almost like knitting with roving. And I knit this for thin roving. But I knit this for my son, and he was, transitioning out of sleep sacks and needed a blanket for his crib, so I wanted to make him one, and I liked this very simple color blocking design, and it's just garter stitch all the way through. He actually likes this side where you can see where the different colors joined. And he uses this every day. It's you know, it is not super wash merino, so I know some people have feelings about giving toddlers things like that that aren't easily washed, but I think that he uses it just fine and he loves using it. He always says, "Mama knit this," and that's really cute too. I like that. I don't know if I said this already, but I use size 13 needles, and I don't really love using giant needles. I much prefer small needles. That's why I love knitting socks. But, you know, this was pretty fast to knit up, and in that case, I don't mind it. And I wanted something thick that would keep him warm, so this definitely does it. And it's very soft. It definitely pills because it's so soft, but whatever. For a blanket that he actually uses, I don't care if it's a little pilly. And it's also definitely felting in some spots, which you might be able to see. Like, use this every single day, so definitely recommend. The next finished object I finished on January 14th, and this was my Farmer's Daughter Fibers February or January Sock Squad yarn. Gray color, and it's a blue toe. So Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad is always a full skein and a mini skein. So I did the pop of color on the cuff and the toe, and I did Hermione's Everyday Socks by Erica Loiter, and it's just a really cute stitch pattern. But other than that, very simple. It does have a little garter stitch on the heel flap, which can be nice. And yeah, I used size 1 needles, not too much to say. This was my first socks of the year with the Sock Squad, and I definitely think I got this shape a little funky, but I get better as the year goes on. The next thing on my list is the Traveler Shawl by Andrea Mowry. I finished this on February 29th, and here it is. I love the colors of this. Wow. So this yarn is the Noro Tasagora. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it, but I'll put it down here. Anyways, it's color 11, which is this rainbow kind of color. And it is 60% wool, 20% silk, and 20% mohair. It definitely has a rustic feeling. It's a worsted weight yarn. But I really enjoyed working with it. I loved seeing how the color changes lined up with the pattern, and especially on this part. Wow, look at that. It's so cool. This is like my shawl to wear in the wintertime outside because it is more rustic. It's not something that I want to wear around the house necessarily, but outside it can even block some rain and snow and things like that. So I do like wearing this outside. I I like the construction of it, but it is a little bit awkward to wear because it's very asymmetrical. This second triangle is much smaller than the first triangle, which is really long. So putting it on can be a little bit tricky, but I still really enjoy it, and I mean, it's so squishy and warm, and the fabric is just so beautiful. So that I enjoyed making this traveler shawl, and I know it's the first shawl I ever made for myself, so um, I'm still getting used to wearing shawls, but I do really enjoy this one. Next on my list is a project that I finished on February 10th, and this was a baby blanket for a friend of mine. Now, this friend is very into wool. I don't know if she's much of a knitter herself, but she definitely really appreciates natural fibers and natural dyes. And the very first thing on her baby registry was a giant bottle of Eucalyptus wool wash. So I knew that she would know how to take care of good wool. So I actually splurged a little and got some really nice wool. It's not superwash, it's not acrylic for her baby, but I knew she would really appreciate it. So I got from the shop a verb for keeping warm in um, they're in Oakland, Emeryville area of the Bay Area in California. I don't know if it's worsted or DK. It looks like a heavy DK maybe. But this is called Horizon, and it's 100% Rambouillet, and it's all natural dyes. So this, I think this reddish pinkish color was made with madder, which is just cool thing, and I knew that my friend would appreciate it. I wish I took pictures of the finished blanket, but I did not. I just shipped it off to her and I haven't seen it since. But I had this one skein left, and you could just see the color variegation in this. It's really fun. I did like some oranges and yellows, kind of a sunsetty look to it, and I just did seed stitch for the blanket, which I have a seed stitch blanket that I made for my son when he was first born, and so it's kind of going off of that same design, and she had nothing but great things to say about it. She was super happy to have it, and they said they used it all the time for their baby, so that made me really happy to hear. The only thing is I have this like almost full skein. I think they only are 50-gram skeins, but I don't know what to do with it. It's like not enough, I don't think, to make a hat. If you have any pattern suggestions, let me know down below. The next project I finished was on February 15th, and it was my Farmer's Daughter Fiber Sock Squad for February, and I used the pattern Socks number 18 by Kirsten Balke, and it's basically just a striped pattern here. So in this month, instead of getting one full skein, you get 2 half skeins, 50 grams each, and then a mini skein. So the yellow and the purple were the 2 50-gram skeins, and then the blue was the mini skein. And I also did a garter stitch heel flap on that one. And yeah, these are very comfy. I love wearing them, and I'm sure I used a size 1 DPN, 2.25 millimeters. Next on my list is a project I finished on April 20th, and this is the Harvey Wallbanger sweater by Thea Coleman. This sweater is knit using Magpie Fibers Quartet in the colors Midnight Train to Georgia, Bougie Beaver, and Magpie. And Quartet worsted it's 100% superwash, and it has this beautiful like wavy lace pattern that I really enjoy wearing. These are the same colors that she designed the pattern in, so again, I get inspired by the pictures I see of the patterns. And yeah, I really enjoyed making this. I actually kind of messed up my yarn overs. I first knit the 2 sleeves, and then as I was knitting the body, you knit everything flat and you seam it together. And as I was knitting the body, I realized that I hadn't done the yarn overs quite right, and I think everything was just a little too scrunched in and it wasn't opening up the way I wanted it to. So I ended up having to frog the sleeves and redo them. But I'm really happy that I did, because I think the finished sweater is something I wear a lot, and it's super comfortable and fits me very nicely. So I definitely recommend this pattern. I think she even has a vest version of it. My next project I finished on March 14th, and that was the March Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad yarn. I made the Barbara socks by Summer Lee, and they are probably my favorite pair of socks that I knit all year. I really like the color, obviously, but this pattern is just so much fun. It's ribbed on one side and then there's lace work on the other side. And you do it mirrored, so there's a left foot and a right foot, and they're just so comfy. I love how long I made the leg so that they're super slouchy and fun to wear, and I think I did a good job on the lace work, and I just really enjoy wearing these a lot, and that's why I think they're my favorite. They're not anything super crazy, but you know, when you just reach for that pair of socks over and over and over again, you know that's you did a good job on those and you made it the way that your foot wants to wear them. So I really enjoy that, these socks and that pattern. I think it's an ode to Barb of Stranger Things, so that's kind of fun too because I do like watching that show. The next Sock Squad socks I finished were I finished them on April 28th, and they're another Summerly pattern. I did the In Bloom socks. So these are very lacy socks, and they have lace just on the top and stockinette on the bottom of the foot, heel flap and gusset. And I love these socks. I like to wear them with some like clog style Mary Janes that I have. So, you know, especially with a dress or a skirt, because then you could see the beautiful lace work while you're wearing, you know, more open shoes. And they are super cute. They're kind of dressy, but I knit them. And yeah, I love showing off my knits. So these are really fun. I actually entered these into our county fair and I won first place. But don't tell anyone. Nobody else entered socks into that category. So that's why I won. The next project I'm going to talk about, I finished on July 28th, and it's the Plenilune tee by Alicia Plummer. This pattern is a cute tee knit up in a fuzzy yarn. So I used the recommended yarn, which was Fua Fua by Moondrake Co. And it's in the color Lichen. And Fua Fua is a beautiful brushed cashmere yarn. It's 70% cashmere and 30% merino. And I believe they class it as a fingering weight, but it's a very fluffy yarn and it's pretty thin, so it could be like a lace to fingering. I think especially the way it floofs up, that makes it more fingering. But in this kind of pattern with a really open gauge, it looks very lacy and the light comes through it and it's really pretty. So yeah, this is a cute little summer tee that even though it's made out of cashmere, it's not very warm because of the very open gauge. I believe I knit it in a size D. I probably use the recommended needle size. You have the option of keeping the neck kind of unfinished or finishing it. And at first I kept it unfinished because I didn't mind the way it looked, but the neck got really wide and it was like popping down over my shoulder and it was just not as comfortable to wear. So I ended up finishing the neck with a little bind off. And I'm glad I did that because I think that it just brought everything in. It made it fit more comfortably. I wasn't fidgeting with it all the time when I was wearing it. And like I said, I didn't finish it till July 28th. So I'm excited for the next warm weather for me to be able to wear it more often because I think it's super cute with some high-waisted jeans, or even wearing it over a dress is very cute because it's a pretty cropped. My next Sock Squad socks I finished on May 22nd, and they were the Leap Year socks by Summerly. So I've done, if you're keeping track, I've done 3 Summerly patterns in a row, and it's not the last one of the year. So these Leap Year socks, again, I got 2 half skeins, so I made the socks alternating colors so that I wouldn't run out of yarn. And the Leap Year socks are a free pattern that Summerly released. It was supposed to be released on Leap Day, but I don't think that they came out until maybe March sometime. But They're very cute little stitch pattern here. Very simple. And again, you know, I made a nice tall leg. So I think the brown was the mini skein that came with this yarn. So these are also a favorite of mine that I wear very often. So I think I'm noticing that I do like a really tall leg on my socks. I should keep that in mind as I'm knitting socks this year. Over the summer on July 13th, I finished the Mingling Daisies shawl by Stephen West. And this shawl has a gorgeous stitch pattern that repeats. So it's texture and lace and cables. I used Purl Soho's linen quill in the color golden green. And it's 50% merino, 35% alpaca, and 15% linen. So this is, and it's a fingering weight. So it has a beautiful drape to it. And I actually knit this to bring to a wedding that I went to in July, and the wedding was in North Carolina. And I don't know if you've been to North Carolina in July, but I did not need a shawl. I did not want a shawl. It was very humid, very hot, and it poured rain on us. So I think having a shawl with any kind of animal fiber would have been too hot and for that humid weather. But I'm still glad I have it. I really like wearing it over like this white t-shirt. I think it adds a little pop of color. It's very lightweight and beautiful drape, so it's easy to wear in terms of a shawl. And it was very fun to knit. You just start right here with like a tab cast on, and then you just increase in a half circle shape. And it's, I don't know, it's very fun. I have, like I said, haven't knit too many shawls, so I really enjoyed the process of making this one. The next sock squads I finished were on June 23rd, and it was another Summerlee pattern. This time I used her book that came out last year. The book is called The Sock Project, and this was a pattern inside of that book. I actually lent that book to a friend, and I did not write down the name of the pattern that I used from the book, so I don't know what the pattern is called. But I will link the book down below so you can check it out if you are interested. These socks have a very cute cable pattern along each side, and then seed stitch in the middle. So while they look fancy, they're pretty simple to knit up, and they were shorty socks. Since it was June, I figured shorty socks were appropriate. And yeah, I don't know that I like wearing shorty knitted socks that much though. I think if I'm reaching for shorty socks, it's to go to the gym, and so these don't get worn that often. I think I would still prefer to have a longer leg on my socks, but I'm glad I made them, and the color is really pretty. My July Farmer's Daughter Fiber Sock Squad socks were also the Stephen West surprise sock along socks. So the last 2 Julys, Stephen West has had a surprise sock along where you sign up in advance, buy the pattern, and then he releases a portion of the pattern once a week for 4 weeks. And so you don't know what the finished socks are going to look like until end. And that's just a really fun thing to do. I especially like it over the summer. The last 2 summers I've been on a trip while I've been working on them, so they were a nice, easy project to carry around because they're so small and bring on the trip. But also it's Stephen West, and he packs as many different stitch techniques as he can into these socks. So it was just a fun experience. These have all sorts of different stitch patterns. They have, ribbing, they have welts here, lace, I-cord, brioche, short rows, more lace, just stockinette. It was crazy how these knit up, but they are so fun. And I love the colors that I chose to use for these. So I believe the orange, pink, and yellow I had in my stash, and then the blue was that month's Farmer's Daughter Fibers colorway. Yeah, I really enjoyed making these, and if he does it again this summer, I will definitely do it again. Oh, the pattern now, you can buy this pattern from Stephen West, and it's called Color Popportunity Socks. The next pattern I finished on August 5th, and it is the Tulsa Tank by Rebecca Clow. So the Tulsa Tank actually comes with a whole bunch of different options. You could do it more of this called the square neck version, but then there's more of like a tank top kind of version with a crew neck, and then there's maybe even, well, she has a Tulsa tee as well, but I don't know. There's a bunch of different versions of the Tulsa tank. I did the square neck version, and she also has different cup sizes. So I did the B cup version, and I did a size 3. And I used Rowan's Summerlight DK, which is 100% cotton yarn. It's the color Coral Blush, which is a very pretty salmony pink color. And to be honest, I don't love cotton yarn. I think that it really shows all the imperfections in your work. I know, like here I joined a new ball, and it was like almost impossible for me to figure out how to make that join invisible, because this is knit in the round and it's stockinette. There's like nothing to hide your ends in. Back here I had the same problem. You see, and I'm sure most people looking at me wearing this top aren't gonna notice those things, but it bothers me. And also, cotton just like kind of stretches out. It doesn't hold its shape, and in this tank top it's fine, but it's heavy. So if I do knit with cotton, maybe I'll try just a fingering weight from now on, or maybe something that's a cotton merino blend, so it does have some memory and bounce back. But yeah, cotton is just not my favorite. Plus, it kind of hurts your hands to knit with it because it's not stretchy at all. But I think the pattern's good, and I would definitely try when I'm in a summer knitting mood to some of the other variations of that pattern. It's so nice of Rebecca Clow to include all of those different variations in her patterns. So that my next finished object of the year was on August 14th, and it's this one, the Partyline scarf by Kaci Apple. Kaci Apple is the maker behind Young Folk Knits, and I really admire her and love watching her videos. So it was exciting when she released this pattern, and she partnered with Craft Me Not Yarn Co. to do a pre-order of her Silky Sport yarn. So this yarn is 50% merino and 50% silk. I don't remember what the colorway was, but maybe like lilac or something like that. Anyways, it's very, very soft, luxurious feeling yarn, and this was a quick knit. I brought this project with me when I went to Flock Fiber Festival in Seattle this year, so it was a nice, easy thing to keep with me that I could work on while I was waiting in lines or taking a break, and it was just a fun little project. I think I have enough yarn to make a whole nother one, and I have told my daughter that I would make her a matching one, but hasn't risen to the top of the priority list just yet. But also, I like wearing it around my ponytail, like a little kerchief kind of a thing. I think it's just cute to add a little pop of color, and I love wearing my hand knits, so it's nice to have something, even in a warmer month, on me at all times. My next Sock Squad project was in August. I finished it on August 21st, and this month I used the brand new Colorwork Cuff Club by Summer Lee, so another Summer Lee pattern, but she decided to start releasing Colorwork cuffs every month if you signed up in advance. Starting in August, on the first of every month, you would get a new Colorwork pattern, and I have been loving those patterns so far, but this was the first one in August. I think it was like inspired by granny stripes, so that's very cute. I'm guessing the mini skein was this light pink and the main skein was this white color, and then I had these other colors just in my stash because you only need a little bit to finish these Colorwork parts, which is really nice. And yeah, those are cute. Knitting Colorwork on just the cuff is really nice because it's over pretty quickly. The only tricky part is making sure that you're knitting it not too tight so that you can get the cuff over your foot. But I usually switch to size 2 9-inch circulars when I'm doing Colorwork. I find that to be much easier to do than doing it on DPNs, and going up a size makes sure that the tension is not too tight. The next thing I finished on September 1st, and that was the mini mock neck tank by Park Williams. So this is, I mean, you've probably seen a mini mock neck tank. They are all the rage, very cute, and I think super flattering in their style. This pattern, I knit it in Pika Pika by Moondrake Co. It is 60% merino, 20% silk, and 20% ramie, which ramie is derived from nettle plants. So it's got a little bit of plant fiber in it, but my gosh, the silk and the merino together, again, kind of like this Partyline scarf, it just makes it so silky. And this color is called Fairy Godmother, which is just this beautiful electric light lavender color. And yeah, it's a fun knit. I think it's a little cropped. I probably should have knit it a little bit longer, but with some high-waisted pants, it's not too bad. And I knit the size large. I think it fits me, around the bust and the neckline and the arms really well. I just wish I knit it a tiny bit longer, but Park Williams loves very cropped things, and she's got the body for it, so it looks great on her. But I need mine a little longer. My next Sock Squad project was the September one. I finished them on September 23rd, and they are another Summer Lee Colorwork Cuff Club sock. This time she had instructions for doing the color work over the whole sock if you wanted to, and so I decided to do that, and I like the way that they look, but not necessarily like wearing them. I think, again, they are pretty short in the leg, so I prefer a taller leg for sure on my socks. And then being color work all the way down the foot, it just makes it so much tighter and harder to put on. Once they're on, I think they fit totally fine, but getting them on can be a little bit tricky sometimes. But man, they do look cool, especially with that pop of like lime green. So it might be hard to tell with the camera, but the lime green is only in these little squares, and then there's kind of a light brown color and a dark brown color. Oh, I did run out of yarn, but I had a color that was pretty similar, so you can't even necessarily tell. I actually almost forgot that that happened. On September 15th, I finished a project that it was the Penguino sweater by Stephen West, and this is a smaller version of his Penguono sweater, which is for adults, but the Penguino one is kid sizes, and I knit a toddler size for my son, and you could do it in either DK or worsted weight gauge, and I chose to do it in DK weight. I held 2 strands of fingering weight together because I have a ton of sock yarn scraps, and I wanted to make him a sweater. Well, he's giant and the size that I knit does not fit him. So I ended up giving that sweater away, and that's why I don't have it right now. But I have a lot of friends with little kids who are smaller than my giant baby, and so they are definitely enjoying it. And it being made out of sock yarn, it's pretty easy to wash and care for. So I think that's a great choice. I would definitely knit another Penguino, and it does come, I think, up to a size 7 to 10, like a youth size 7 to 10. And then, of course, there's the Penguono, which also has a whole bunch of sizes. So I might want to knit one of those again, but I have just so many things on my to knit list right now that I'm not going to commit to that. But I love making things, especially for my son, because he doesn't protest to what I put him in. Yet my daughter has more opinions about what she wears. But my son, I can put him in anything, and knitting little sweaters is fun because it doesn't take very long. So it might be a nice palette cleanser later on in the year. And I know I have enough scrap yarn to complete another Penguino. So that might be in the future for 2025. We will see. The next thing I finished on October 7th, and this was the Iris Hat by Sari Nordlund. I bought this yarn from Ocean Fibers when I was at Flock in Seattle, and I held a fingering merino. It's just 100% merino in the color Plankton Mandala, and then a mohair in the color Tidal Pools. Fibers has all sorts of oceany themed yarns, but this color, especially the Tidal Pools, was really calling to me, and I wanted to make something out of it. So I made this hat. It is really long ribbed hat, so you can fold it a bunch of times, and it's super warm because of the mohair and floppy, and I don't know, it's a very cozy hat, and I've been wearing it a lot in this cold weather, so I really enjoy that. So next is actually one of the last things I finished in 2024, but I think I must have started it in October, so Ravelry is listing it right now, but it's my Paulie cardigan, which I finished on December 27th. And if you want to know more about this cardigan, then please check out my last video, Starry Stitches, because I talked all about finishing this cardigan um and also just patterns with quilt star motifs, which I think was a huge trend in 2024 and one that I really enjoyed. So yeah, you can find out more about this sweater in that last video, but basically I enjoyed making it. I got a little hung up when I ran out of yarn at one point, but and I still don't have the right buttons for it. So I've been wearing it around the house just open, but I haven't been able to wear it out yet because I do think it needs buttons to wear it out. Man, look at that. Isn't that pretty? Yeah, so check out that video. I just realized that I don't have my October socks from Farmer's Daughter Fibers, but no worries. They're somewhere around here. I knit the Broken Rope socks by Summer Lee, and they are also probably maybe my second favorite sock of the year. Broken Rib is a great sock pattern. It's super comfortable, super versatile. I think it has a lot of flexibility in sizing, so if you're making gift knits for somebody, I would highly recommend that pattern because it's probably guaranteed to fit them as long as you get the length right. The width part is pretty forgiving. So I really enjoy those socks, and I will post some pictures of them here. The other pair of socks I made in October, I finished on October 26th, and these were some Halloween socks for my daughter. I kind of gave myself a little challenge to finish up a pair of socks for her before Halloween, but I ordered the yarn super last minute from Hobie, And so it didn't come until like the 23rd, I think. And I got them knit up in 2 days. So I finished them on October 22nd or 26th so she could wear them on Halloween. And they are just the Hobie Yarns Halloween sock yarn in the color Scary Socks, I think. And I just did a vanilla sock with a pretty long leg, and I did a Fish Lips Kiss heel for the first time, which was really a fun challenge. She loves a tight heel. She doesn't really like a heel flapping gusset. So I did that heel for those socks, and they just fit her very nicely. My November Sock Squad socks, I did the Under the Quilt socks by Stone Knits, and I did talk a lot about these in one of my earlier podcasts, but these are all over Colorwork socks. They have a short row heel, and so you do work the heel before finishing the sock. I did have some trouble with fit when it came to the short row heel. I think I have a really high arch, so I need a pretty deep heel for the socks to fit me properly. And the first sock I did is very tight. Let's see if you can see the difference in these two. So this is the first one I did, and it looks pretty, but this is the second one. So you could see how much deeper I knit the second one. And this one fits awesome. This one fits great. This one is very tight. And especially around the top of my foot, right, right above my heel. So maybe one day I will knit a third sock with a deeper heel. Who wants to knit a third sock? I only have 2 feet. I don't want to knit a third sock. I do love the pattern though. I think it's really cute, and again with that quilt star kind of theme of the year. My next finished project I finished on November 23rd, and those were the Cable Dad Mittens by Alexis Winslow, and I made these out of Magpie Fibers Quartet worsted. It's their superwash merino in the color Rhiannon. I made them for my brother for Christmas, and I gave them to him on Christmas, so I don't have them anymore. He really liked them. They fit well, and I was happy to see him get those. And then as soon as I finished those, I casted on the World's Simplest Mittens by Tin Can Knits, and this is using the rest of the yarn from my brother's mittens, and I made these for my son in the size toddler, I believe. Yep, size toddler. I knit these in the afternoon. They were very quick. In fact, I finished my brother's mittens and I started these, and then we went for a walk later in the afternoon and my son wore them. So he loves wearing them. They stay on his hand pretty well, and I think they definitely keep his hands warm. He's a toddler, so eventually they come off, but it does make me feel better knowing that he has at least something on his hands at the beginning of a walk. Next were some gift socks that I made for my daughter. I finished them on December 4th, and I just used some yarn that I had lying around. But I just did a simple 2x1 ribbed sock, and I did another Fish Lips Kiss heel on those because she liked it, and I gave them to her for Christmas and she liked them a lot. So that was a fun little quick knit for her. Over Thanksgiving weekend, I participated in Andrea Mowry's sock knit along challenge, where you are supposed to knit a pair of socks in 4 days, and she released this pattern called the Oxbow socks, and they had a sport weight version or a fingering weight version, so I actually chose to do the sport weight version, and I did them in the Wandering Flocks Baby Packet in the color Rainbow Sherbet. And if you were along for that ride, I had a lot of trouble picking what yarn to use, but I did settle on these, and they are so comfy. Super soft and fuzzy. They are starting to felt a little bit on the toe, but whatever. They're socks. That's what they're there for. So I really enjoy these socks. And I did finish them on November 30th. So I think it only took me 3 days to knit these socks. I knit 2 pairs of cabin slippers by Ysolda Teague this year as gifts. One pair for my daughter and one pair for my husband. And for my daughter, I knit them in the Malabrigo Rios, and I think I knit the size kid small, which fits like a 13.5 to a size 1 shoe size. These are brioche slippers, and and my husband I knit the size extra large, and for his I used Green Mountain Spinnery's Mountain Mohair in the color Alpenglow. So these are brioche slippers. The cuff and the top of the foot are knit in brioche, and then the rest of the foot and the sole is knit in garter stitch. And I really enjoyed the construction of those slippers. I had a lot of fun making them, and they didn't take very long once I sat down and finished them. My daughter's I finished on December 16th, and my husband's I finished on December 23rd. And I don't have those to show you right now because they're both wearing them, which is great. Makes me really happy that they like them. My husband's I actually ran out of the Alpenclow almost at the end of the sole of the second foot. So I ended up using some of actually I think it was some of this Rhiannon. Now Alpenglow is like a deep brown purple color, and obviously Rhiannon is this green color, but my husband is very colorblind, so he can't really see the difference between those colors, and also it's the bottom of the foot. He's gonna wear them at home. He didn't care as long as I finished them. Thank goodness for colorblind husbands. Sometimes it helps. The last thing I finished in 2024, I finished them on New Year's Eve, December 23rd, and they were my December Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad socks. I did the pattern by Andrea Mowry called Mondim socks, and it is a toe-up ribbed sock with lace work on the top of the foot and around the leg. And I learned that I hate knitting toe-up socks a lot. Maybe I need more practice, but mostly I just didn't like it. I found the fit to be extremely weird. I had a hard time understanding when I was supposed to start the increases for the heel, and so my sock is just way too big, and luckily my mom has bigger feet than I do, so I had her try them on and they fit her great, and I have never knit her socks before, so I happily passed those socks on to her. So I don't have them to show you right now, but I'll show you some pictures. I like the way that they look. I think they do have a cool look, and it's definitely the look I was going for with those socks, but knitting toe up is just extremely annoying, and I don't really see the point when I think top down just works really well for me. And I don't know, maybe I'll get adventurous this year. Andrea Mowry seems to knit a lot of socks toe up, so if I want to make any of her patterns, I might dive into that a little more. I know people say that they do toe up because they worry about running out of yarn, and that way they can know that they can just knit the leg as long as they want to, but I have never well, I was gonna say I never ran out of yarn in a pair of socks, but I did talk about running out of yarn with these. But for the most part, if I'm using a full skein of yarn, I've never run out. In fact, I usually have enough to make a whole nother pair, so I'm not that worried about running out doing top down. Anyways, that's a lesson I learned this year. To wrap up this year's knitting, I wanted to give you a few stats. So I made 16 pairs of socks this year, or last year, 2024. I made 2 pairs of slippers, 2 blankets, 3 sweaters, 3 shirts, 2 shawls, 4 accessories, and 2 hats. And yeah, I think that that was a pretty successful year. I do have some goals for next year that I've been thinking about as I'm looking at these stats. And one of them is definitely knit more sweaters. I would love to have more sweaters in my wardrobe. I love wearing my hand knits, and so I would love to commit to more sweaters. And I have one that I wound up all the yarn for and I need to just cast on. So that's going to be my treat for today after I finish filming this. I'm going to cast that on. But yeah, if you have any sweater patterns that you love, please give me the patterns down below. I would love to know what you're working on or what patterns you really like to make. Another goal I have is to keep up with my Farmer's Daughter Fibers sock squad. I obviously really enjoy knitting socks, and I did a great job last year of making a pair of socks every month. I don't want this yarn to pile up in my stash, so it's important to me to work with the yarn that I am bringing in. So that's part of my goal, is to keep up with that. I don't need the socks to be for me every single month, but I would like them to be probably most of the time for me because I like wearing them and I like making them for myself. Another goal I have is to get better at knitting multiple projects at once. I am a pretty monogamous knitter, and well, for the most part, I usually have one pair of socks and one other project on the needles at once. But it's hard for me to have a lot at once. It tends to make me feel overwhelmed, but I think I will accomplish more if I do have more things on the needles at once. Yeah, I have a strong drive to finish projects, so if I can just get them started, then I probably will finish them. I guess that's part of my mentality, but I just kind of want to try that out and maybe have a little more variety in my life too, of having multiple things. It's easier for me to decide what do I want to work on right now and that type of thing. And another thing is I want to start a scrappy project. So as I mentioned before, I have a lot of ends of sock yarns that are just kind of piling up, and I think a penguino would be a great scrappy project to work on, but also maybe a blanket. I have the pattern for the northeasterly blanket, which is made for fingering weight, and you make little chevron columns. And I think it would be a great scrappy project to start, to just have a blanket going at all times. Might be a fun thing. So that's just another goal of mine, is to use up my scrappy. Thank you so much for everyone for joining me today and checking out what I worked on this year. It's been a fun year. I started this YouTube channel, which has been a great journey, and I appreciate all of you who have been part of it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next video.